Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of the Ordinary Sacred, and this is another Q&A question. And this person asks, how do I unidentify with scarcity? And I think what this person is really asking is, how do I unburden scarcity? Because scarcity is really a burden. It's an extreme belief, probably accompanied by some extreme emotions, maybe of fear, and maybe it could be unworthiness, it could be helplessness, that belief of there's not enough, I'm going to die even, right? So scarcity is really the burden that a part of you, or maybe several parts, are carrying. Now, scarcity is one of those things that can often be either or both and a legacy burden passed down from generation to generation and or a personal burden, meaning that you have had very specific experiences in your life that have made your parts burdened and fearful of, if you say growing up, lived on the street, your family didn't have enough to eat, the only meal you had was, at school with the free lunch or something like that, you were eating ketchup packets from McDonald's as a meal or something, if you have had those experiences, then your scarcity is that burden is a personal burden. Now, if you feel like I don't really have experiences of going without and being afraid of whether my physical needs were going to be met, you may have a legacy burden. You may also have both. Sometimes the personal experience was just kind of listening to your parents or absorbing their fears about it, right? Which is kind of this mix of the legacy and the personal. You had a personal experience with your parents' fears, but it really wasn't about your own fears. You're absorbing the legacy burden. Okay. So the first thing I would do is, if you can, get really curious about the part or parts that hold this burden of scarcity. So you might think of the last thing that activated it, where it came up, and you felt this desperation of, I'm not going to have enough, and felt that maybe anxiety. Really get curious about where you feel it in or around your body, kind of how it shows up. Maybe it's certain thoughts, maybe it's emotions, sensations in your body, an energy. Maybe it just comes out in a certain behavior, right? To try to protect you from scarcity. So really again, you're just observing. You don't have to know everything in HD. You're just observing what you can, right? Of how this part or perhaps cluster of parts shows up within your system. And then once you kind of notice that, and you can write it on a paper, sometimes I'll draw my body, I draw a little stick figure, basic figure, and just note on it kind of what the thoughts are, what the emotions are, where it is in the body. And then check how you feel toward it, because you might have parts that are having reaction, that hate it, that want it to just stop, that are polarized. You might have parts who just have any kind of opinion about it, and ask them if they'll give you space so that you can feel genuinely curious and open. And if you can approach this part or parts that hold scarcity with curiosity, then you can begin asking questions and receiving answers from it to get insight. And so I would suggest you I love the question of just, what do you want me to know about you? And the answers can come in the form of words sometimes, but it's often more, they'll show you memories, or they'll have certain sensations come up in your body, or they'll show you images or symbols, or they'll just show you anything they want you to know. So that's a good question to start with. You might ask, how old are you? Or how long have you been doing this job, if they're doing a job? Um, and just kind of get a sense, and always know that they are doing this job for a reason, even if you don't see the full picture, there is a full picture. And if you can come at them with genuine like, belief that they are doing this for a reason, they will begin to show you what that reason is. Okay. So, so just being open to them and then to know whether it is a legacy burden or a personal burden or what percentage, you can simply ask the part or parts, what percentage of your burden of scarcity is not yours? So, what percentage is not yours? And sometimes you will kind of just get a number. If that feels difficult, another really helpful thing that works for me and for many people is you can get a piece of paper and draw a circle on it and basically ask the part or parts that hold scarcity to answer the question by coloring in the part of the circle that is not theirs, the percentage basically. It's kind of like a pie. And so they will do that. And then you can see, oh, wow, 80% of this scarcity burden is a legacy burden. So then that means that 20% is a personal burden. They might say 100% is a legacy burden. They might say 50%. They might say zero. Just be open to whatever they say. Okay. And then whatever percentage was a legacy burden, there's kind of two different things that you do, whether it's a legacy burden or a personal burden. And I'm going to go over it in a cursory way, but I have other videos that talk a lot about this that I'll point you to as well. So if it's a legacy burden, it's actually easier to release a legacy burden than a personal burden. Um, so you want to ask these parts, how do you feel about releasing this percentage that's not yours, right? And they might have concerns. They might feel like they're not going to be loyal to their parents or family members or even culture in general. They might disappoint their ancestors if they let go of it. There might be certain fears that something will happen if they let go of it. Like if I don't always worry about money, then I will actually not have it, right? And so they have just certain beliefs and different things. And what I like to do is to actually invite the selves of the ancestors. This is important. The capital S selves of the ancestors in. So for example, if they say, um, I feel like my mother would be disappointed if I let go of it. You can bring in the self of the mother, even if the mother's still alive, bring in the self of the mother and ask them directly, would you be opposed to so and so, or to yourself, if you're doing this with yourself? Would you be opposed to me releasing this burden of scarcity? And just see what they say. Okay. And then once their concerns are met, or maybe some of their concerns are met and some are not, and you can propose, do you want to release half of it and see what happens, right? You're never steamrolling over them, making them do anything. Their concerns have to be met before they will organically be willing to do it. Once their concerns are met, they will rush toward it because they really do want to release the burdens that weigh them down, right? So, so try to meet whatever concern they have. And if you feel like you can't meet their concern, you're like, oh yeah, that's a good one. I don't know what to do. Um, Ask the part of you that's trying to figure it out if they'll give you space, if they'll just step next to you. Um, because yourself, your clear, confident, creative self will know exactly what to do. Okay. So if you're not sure, ask those parts to step aside and you will be able to meet their concerns, I promise. So then, once your concerns are met, you can do a beautiful unburdening ritual with all the ancestors to identify where they hold this burden of scarcity in or around their bodies, release it to one of the elements. It can be a really beautiful, beautiful process. And then you will likely feel a lot of relief, a lot of um, lightness, from not having to carry the legacy burden of scarcity. And then your attention can go toward the personal burden, and you can begin to ask the parts that carry a personal burden, when did this happen? Can you tell me about it? Can you tell me when you got the message or what happened, because they're going to then point to um, personal experiences where parts of you might be stuck back in a time experiencing that, and then yourself can time travel back and reparent and redo and help them in that process. So I led a workshop in about legacy burdens and did a meditation that I led people through, similar to what I've described with, the meeting with the ancestors and releasing things and dealing with concerns. So I'm going to try to put it, I never know if it's this side or this side, but I'm going to try to post it up here if you want to watch that. And then I also have a video where I go through basically just describing the whole process of IFS, where it talks about what it looks like to time travel back to parts of us stuck in the past with that personal burden and what that it's a circle and it's this part of the circle right here. So I'll try to also post that video somewhere up here for you if you want to check that out. But that's really just like, the last Q&A video about firefighters, any part, that holds this burden of scarcity, like they really can't release it until their concerns are met, what they protect is healed, the parts that are stuck in the past are brought into the present. But once that's done, they no longer have to carry that. And again, you will no longer identify as or with that once those burdens are released. So I hope that's helpful. If you have any additional questions about scarcity, or maybe you have other tips or different things that have helped you, stories about what's helped you with scarcity, please feel free to leave that in the comments below.